Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Looters Atlantis Dev Blog. Sorry it's been a couple of weeks. I promise you I have been working on this consistently, and it's just taken me this long to finally finish what I was working on with this game and other things. So last episode we left off talking about some small minor bug fixes, visual fixes, performance enhancements, and other tweaks like that. So that was cool. Now the thing I've been working on a lot, I said I was going to work on the town interface next, but this kind of came in the way of that, unfortunately. So let's kind of get right into it. While working on another game I'm working on this as a freelancing kind of part-time gig. I may have mentioned a little bit in the last part. I looked into some game maker related frameworks, and that kind of sent me on a whole rabbit hole of digging into game maker as a whole, game maker best practices and everything. So it led me to two major discoveries, which I really should have learned and known from the beginning or done early on in the game's development, but I didn't, unfortunately, and it created a lot of extra work. And there's probably still more work to go in the future, not just with this, but with refactoring code in general. So that's kind of a lot of what I did. So hopefully, the results of that will show, but it will definitely pay off in the long run. I think a lot of the actual effects of what I did, and you'll understand what I'm saying in a second, the effects of what I have worked on and what I've changed will be visible. So what am I talking about? So two things. One is like using state machines more, which is more just kind of logic-based changes and decisions that I was kind of already using, but I am trying to make sure I not just use state machines more, but break up my code a little better. I kind of started doing that later on in my code development, but when I look back at like the old logic for, let's say, for example, the cards, the code was written in a very rudimentary way that I would probably not write it as now if I was to start this game over again. So that's kind of one thing I went through a lot of my code and tried to clean up a lot of it, as well as with newer things, making sure that the code is written in a better way that's more manageable. So that was one thing I did. The other main thing I did was using DrawGUI. And if you know anything about Game Maker or know anything about game development, in Game Maker, DrawGUI, which I mentioned in the last video, is a type of drawing event where instead of drawing based on the object and it's in the room position and everything, it draws based on the graphical user interface or the screen or display size of the game you're playing. So for example, you can set the GUI width and height to be whatever you want it to be. Some games are 720 width by something. Anyway, my game is 1920 by 1080. That's what I decided to go with. That's what a lot of the rooms and screens I have made are using and are based off of. So why is that important? So for the longest time, I've been using Draw for everything because I didn't understand what DrawGUI really did, and I didn't know how to use it, and so I didn't use it for anything really because I didn't know how to utilize it properly. So there's another thing in Game Maker that's called layers, and I mentioned that in the last video. And what layers do is it works with a depth-based system. It kind of gives it almost like a 3D perspective, almost not 3D, but more just prioritizes certain layers. Kind of like if you're using Photoshop, you have layers, or you're doing any photo editing tool, you have different layers and whatnot. Same thing here. You have depth 0 being the the furthest in front of the screen, and the higher the number, the farther back it goes in the screen. So GUIs use that layer as well, but they get prioritized over everything else in the game. And that's what I should have been using for all these menus, and I wasn't. So I went through everything that was HUD related, which is I forget what HUD stands for. User display, I think. Heads up display? Yeah, heads up display, that's right. Gosh, I'm a game developer, I don't know what HUD means. Anyway, there's heads up display, there's the user interface, there's the graphical user interface, there's the user experience. All that needs to utilize the DrawGUI, and it wasn't. So mouse input, everything for any HUD or user interface related stuff was not using that, and it resulted in a lot of weird things in the game, especially in the seascape area where the camera was smaller than the actual GUI size, and that caused menus and other stuff to look weird. And if you remember, go back and watch those other parts and you'll see exactly what I mean. But anyway, let's get right into it. You might not notice at first, but the text itself should look a lot crispier and a lot cleaner. It probably already looks the same on this screen because this screen was already the same size as the GUI. Let's go into load game. There's no games, obviously, so this is not a good example. I went ahead and deleted all my games before starting this. Let's go into settings. This is probably better. So this might look a little differently positioned, but now this will look exactly the same no matter what screen we're on. So we'll go into that real quick. So let's go to audio. These might look a little different. I did change some of the drawing logic, but let's see. I've changed a little bit of the saving logic, but overall this seems the same, but in reality it's not. Let's go here where I did a couple more changes. I've changed the windowed mode to be just 3 buttons since there's only 3 of them anyway. It didn't really make sense to have it as a drop down. That was some feedback I got from Curtis, so I went ahead and changed that. But what I didn't change, but I kind of changed, was the drop down. So the drop down will also work with the GUI. It's a HUD thing, so obviously since we're in borderless, it's going to not really matter. I'm probably going to later just disable this drop down unless you're in windowed mode. So that's probably something I'm going to add after this. Probably it's really low priority for me, so not gonna worry about it right now. It wouldn't take that long. Again, this also works. But before, the issue, if you remember, the issue I was having with this and other parts of the screen were that the mouse wasn't working on in Seascape. For this, for example, I couldn't click and hover over this, and now that should be working. I just finished working on that part. So let's go ahead and start a new game. Another thing I've fixed, that you wouldn't notice, is the performance of, this screen. This screen was performing fine, but it was calling the event that triggered these text to be displayed every frame, and that's not what you want. So now it's just on every change of this position. So let's go ahead and do cheaty. Oh yeah, this might look a little different too. The pop-up size, all the pop-ups will look more consistent across the board now, so that will be much better. So let's go ahead and click enter. All right, so just walking around, you might not notice at first, but there is definitely some differences here. So if you look up here in this corner, this is a little bit bigger, and the sprite that I'm drawing here is not it's not shrunken down anymore. It just looks normal, and that might mean that I have to go back and make the borders a little thicker or whatever, just to make it more kind of shaped like it was before. But I do like how it's cleaner now. Whenever I move, there's no weird sprite tearing. Especially, I don't know if you remember when I moved up and right, the space text was also kind of glitching a little bit. There was some blurriness. Same with these things. These are going to no longer be blurry anymore. And tooltips are also drawn above the icons now, so that's nice. This wasn't really as effective because it's already a small sprite. And now you can see when I go from here to here, nothing changes for the HUD. Everything for the HUD is the same, because you can see the camera gets zoomed out here. I've also changed it to just be a I think it's 1.5 times zoomed out now. It's not as insane, I don't think. It shouldn't be, at least. I need to go back and double check all the zooming, like when you leave the island and stuff. But yeah, the HUD is now consistent. And now if we pause the game, this also looks a lot cleaner. The text is a lot less blurry and pixelated. If we go to load game, here's the, the buttons are actually, showing clear and more consistently. Same thing if I go to settings, it's in the same exact position too. So I had to go in and change all the logic, drawing logic and step logic, which step logic is just every frame what it does. Yeah, you can see now here this works. So I can do this, there we go. So that's all working. This took a long time to get working. It was a lot of up, back and forth trying to get this to properly pick up on my mouse and draw things correctly and rescale things. So I rescale things to be more consistent. Only problem now I have is whenever I have a lot of saves under a game now, sometimes when the top one's expanded and the ones below it are not, they aren't showing because they're outside of the Y position that they need to be in. That's a bug right now that I need to fix, and I'm trying to come up with a solution. So that's one thing. So yeah, these will all draw a lot more clear, a lot more consistent. The text looks a lot better. The sprite, everything just so much better. Not something you really noticed. Here, I didn't really change a whole lot. These icons are off. You can see that they don't look exactly the same. You see how these are blurrier. This is what it probably looked like more before. This also the positioning and sizing, just a little off. I'll fix it later. The tooltip, same thing. I'll fix those two later. I want to fix it without messing up this, because this doesn't necessarily need to use the HUD, because I want to be able to drag and drop items or place items above this, so I don't want everything to use the HUD. Also, the tooltips now use HUD. That's one thing. These tooltips, not these ones. Let's go to the journal. Same thing. Same issue. The deck builder, this is not using the HUD yet, so you can kind of see the text is a little blurrier. This is using that. This has been updated to use the HUD now, so I don't have to, you know, it doesn't seem like it changes a lot, but what this will do is whatever display size I'm on, whether I'm on a mobile screen or the console or whatever, smaller, older resolution, you know, screen, it's gonna look the same, no matter, you know, what the screen size is, because the GUI size is determined. So it's gonna be as if it's, you know, shrunken down, but not losing quality. So that's something that was really important for me. You'll notice that has changed. Another big thing with that is that also now the dialogue is using the same DrawGUI, and it's gonna look a little kind of jarring at first, maybe with the text size, but now look at the text, it's so much clearer. I also made it where the size of the dialog box is dynamic based on how many lines there are. It's not exactly based on how many lines, I kind of did some sort of mathing or calculation on how big it needed to be, did like a min-maxing. Right now it's making the portrait the same size. I might change that to just be a constant portrait size and position and have this be changed. And now this is also using DrawGUI, so this is also doing something similar to this where it has a min-max size, and now the text should look a lot cleaner. It's drawing just a little bit more consistently. So if I do this, oh yeah, Cheaty has a cheat option, which, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and use. Why not? We're gonna go ahead and test out Jack's draw. Let's see, let's do, I wanna fight you. Yeah, so some other things I changed. You could see ammo and energy now have like some you know, box behind them. Kind of changed the way this is also using DrawGUI. This was old code here. It was using a separate object for each of these sprites and text, which was really stupid and really unnecessary. So I moved into the game manager's object that, you know, manages all the backend code for the Duel. So that was one major thing I fixed. The code should be a lot more manageable. This is more to help me out, but also to make the game just run better, more consistent. So now if I go here, I got rid of the kind of darkened area thing because it's already using a whatever. I didn't want the tards to be darkened whenever you do it, because the layer that's doing this darkened silhouette thing is also affecting the cards, as you can see. So there's that. Yeah, now I think aside from that, the only real difference is gonna be let's see, fight you with my crew, which I don't have any crew, so let me just go ahead and do that real quick. Hold on one second. Go ahead, I added 30 crew, you can see there. Let's go ahead and fight with my crew. So there's some crew. So now this is also using DrawGUI. Let's see. There it is. Also, I don't know if this was here before. I think it was. Morale was being drawn here as well. So now it shows you the morale. I don't know. Maybe this is new. I can't remember, to be honest. I'd have to go back and look at the last video, but it's showing what your morale rating is. Enemy crew, healthy crew, Yammer. It shows you what, like, there's a hover over of what each one does. I don't know if that's new or not. I honestly don't remember. If I add some injured crew, you can see that also shows. So there's that has been changed. Oh yeah, you can see the to-do text is also less blurry. I did a little bit of tweaking on how that gets drawn as well. That's also using DrawGUI. Let's go ahead and go to Logic. Yeah, you can see here, much bigger. It's dynamic now. It looks much better. So let's go recruit some crew. And it should, yep, see that text isn't cutting off anymore. There might be still some bugs and issues with the text going, like the wrapping properly. Probably some things I need to change. Yeah, the buttons here, all buttons are using that, so now they look a little bigger. And I hide the buttons and that icon whenever I go to pause. Still don't have any music here. I've also added a dev hotkey for anybody that has this dev build of the game to skip all of the modes, not just the dual mode, but now you can skip masterminds, you can skip and again, skip meaning if you're dev and you're doing actual dev testing on this game. let's do this as well. This is the only mode that doesn't have it, I think, because it already has some cheat codes. Boom, boom. That is not using DrawGUI, that screen. I mean, a lot of this is mostly just back-end logic changes. Apologies if this isn't a very exciting video. For me, it's exciting because, you know, now I have a lot more, you know, the game works a lot better. It should run a little better, even though it already ran fine. It just, you know, it's better for the long term, is really what I'm trying to say. I think I fixed some other bugs here and there too, but I honestly don't remember what they were. If I'm being honest, I don't remember. The next thing I'm going to do, like I mentioned before, is the town interface. I've unstashed the changes. I'm going to start working on those later, but I wanted to get this video out now. Oh, get away. Let's go ahead and leave. Yeah, if you go back and compare it and contrast it to our video, I might include like a comparison to the two clips, maybe. I don't know. Probably not. Honestly, just go back and watch the previous video, previous 3 or 4 videos even, including even the teaser trailer, and just compare it to this. Like if you have it on the highest quality of the video and then you look at this, it should be a lot different. Even whenever I go to the port, which this port does not have the town interface. I think I mentioned that. This icon's a lot clearer. You can actually see it. You can see, yeah, see it changes. It wasn't like difficult changes, but you know, when I can't just click a button and change it from draw to drawing on the user interface like it should be, and then it just magically look good. I have to also make sure that if there's any mouse interactions, that those are accordingly matched, to use the mouse GUI and to draw and calculate the position correctly. It's a lot of different, you know, things that need to be accounted for. Yeah, I think I fixed most of the bugs that I mentioned last time. So like the pirates can actually, you know, run into me now. There's a bug I mentioned last time that with the prioritization of the ship versus the player, that needs to still be fixed. But aside from that, yeah, that's about it. I'll probably, once I have the town interface done, I'll probably update the build of this game again, and then you guys can either request to download the dev build if I know you. If I don't, then request to get a key for the, you know, the normal build with just the normal new story mode. If you haven't already, you know, make sure to like, subscribe, you know, follow for more. I'm gonna try to post these every week or every other week as I get updates to the game. Hopefully next time I post a video, there'll be the town interface and maybe some other things. We also have some new cards coming into the game. That'll be exciting. That's what Curtis has been working on a lot. He's got a whole lot of new cards. He's got legendary cards that he's adding. So stay tuned for that. May do a video where I go over all the cards we have. I've kind of shown a little bit of them. I'd rather people get to play the game a little bit first before, you know, I expose all the cards and what they do. If you guys are interested in seeing legendary cards and kind of maybe helping us even brainstorm some ideas, definitely join the Discord. I mentioned that last video, and I'm going to keep mentioning it every video probably. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and y'all have a good one. Peace.